Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson, and today a question that most parents grapple with frequently. How do you feel about your 11-year-old riding their bike to the park to play for a few hours without your oversight? What about if they're going to walk to the corner shop alone, or they're just going to walk the dog around the block, or meet a friend at the local playground without you hovering nearby? If those scenarios make your stomach clench and your mind race through all those worst-case scenarios, I'm sure you're not alone. But here is the question that might make you even more uncomfortable. What if the riskiest thing you can do as a parent is never letting your child take any risks at all? Today, we're tackling the independence dilemma that is defining modern parenting. Stay with us. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We're Justin and Kylie Coulson, and every Tuesday on the podcast, we answer your tricky questions. If you would like us to answer your tricky question, we'd love to do it. Here's how you go about it. Visit happyfamilies.com.au. We've got a super simple system where you just click the button and start talking. It's that simple, and we might feature your question on the pod, just like Teresa from Victoria.
Hi there, my name is Teresa. I'm from Lilydale in Victoria. My question is just regarding independence, like letting your child leave the house on their own to go to the park or ride their bike or go to the shop or meet a friend. My child is 12, in year 7 next year. Currently, I don't feel safe letting him go out anywhere on his own. And should I be letting go a bit? I'm not sure. Thank you.
This is such a tricky one. The heartstrings of any mother gets pulled a bit here because we want our kids to be safe. Ultimately, we want our kids to be safe.
Can I sound like a bit of a grump? I don't think it's tricky at all.
You're hilarious.
Well, there's a difference between danger and risk. Okay,
I understand that.
So danger, can the child assess what's going on, yes or no? If yes, assess the risks and go for it. If they can't assess the danger, then as a parent, you step in and say no. And I think, 12-year-olds are pretty good at assessing whether they can cross a road or whether a park feels safe. Are they going to do it 100% perfectly? No, but I think they can do it.
I think that's the difference between the average male and the average female in this situation.
I mean, the research would certainly agree with you on that. Dads are much more.
I had that baby inside me
when our daughter walks
for 9 months.
But when our daughter walks around the block with the dog,
she's part of me.
My heart goes with her and my stomach clenches and I think, is she going to be okay? And maybe she could just stay in the street instead of going around the block. Like I still have that feeling. But as a dad, knowing that it's good for her to be able to have those experiences, I'm like, go for it. And then I just hold my breath for the 17 and a half minutes until she gets back. It's really good for my breath holding activity, right? But it's good for them to do this.
I understand that it's good for them. It doesn't mean that it's comfortable. For anyone.
No, I'm not suggesting that it's comfortable at all. I'm saying it's good for them to do it. Look, here are the stats, and this is not going to make anyone feel better, but the stats tell us that the 24-hour news media cycle makes us think the world's a dangerous place and that everyone's going to get kidnapped. And it's just not the reality. Safest time in human history for children is where we're living right now. Also, the most anxious time for parents right now. Why?
Because we have access to more than we've ever had access to.
We have access to all of this information. And so we find out about this one thing that happens on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, and we think that it's going to happen right now, right here in our neighbourhood. And the evidence doesn't support that. There is risk.
But I also think there's this collective fear that has taken hold of communities in general.
Yep.
Whereas back when we were growing up, everybody,
that fear did not exist at all.
Everybody let their kids go and do whatever they
Jonathan Haidt
wanted.
writes about it in The Anxious Generation. We've moved from this play-based child to the screen-based child, and it's partly because of this 24-hour news cycle that tells us that we are supposed to be anxious and paranoid every time our child leaves our front door, steps across the threshold.
Well, wherever they're in our house, we've got complete control over what happens.
Yeah,
right?
no, so I'm not arguing for being lax. The anxiety that you feel as a parent is appropriate because your job is to protect your young. But I just think the reality check's important. I sound like I'm getting cranky at Teresa. I'm not cranky. I'm probably more cranky at the world than anything. If anything, context matters.
Like anything. Understanding what it is that you're actually deciding on makes all the difference. Do you feel safe in your suburb? Do you know people along the route that the kids could stop in if they felt unsafe or needed a drink of water or needed to go to the bathroom? Are they meeting friends at the park? How far away is the park? How many roads are they going to have to cross? Do they have to cross busy roads? Are they going to be at traffic lights, or are they going to be having to assess the crossing of that without any external help?
Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that we just send a 12-year-old out into the void if they've never had that experience before. You want to start with small things like walking the dog up and down the street and then let it expand from there. We had a friend acquaintance, somebody that we knew in one of the previous places that we've lived, who had a 17-year-old son who wasn't allowed to ride his bike a kilometre down the street to the road. And it was on back suburban streets. It wasn't on busy roads because this mother was so overprotective, so anxious that her son was not allowed to do this stuff. I thought it was bonkers. But here's the other thing. We might be making too big a deal out of this because guess what? The kid was still pretty well adjusted and he went on to live a pretty fun life and he's turned into a pretty decent adult by all reports. But at the time, I mean, this poor kid, he was told that he had to stay in his house. And I don't think that that's useful. Independence is going to work best when you are guiding your children through things bit by bit, giving them staged opportunities to develop and experience, practicing shorter trips, building that independence, building the community, making things feel safer.
Even though this is really difficult for mums, and especially that first time. If this is the first time you've ever let your kids out of your sight and they're doing something solo, there is something just so crazy hard. It hurts. It hurts. You're scared. You're anxious, all of the things. But there's something awesome that happens when our kids get to do something that number one, they knew you were worried about and they get to prove you wrong. They get to prove to you that number one, they're capable of it. Number two, that nothing happened. And number three, the sense of independence that they get. It soars. It's such a confidence boost for them. And it is absolutely a confident boost for parents as they experience the same thing alongside their kids.
In the 1980s, when I was roaming neighbourhoods for hours, our parents had no way of tracking this at all. Today, we've got mobile phones, we've got GPS tracking, constant communication options that our parents could only dream of. After the break, let's talk about some really practical steps that we can take to help our 7-year-olds or 9-year-olds or 12-year-olds or 15-year-olds to become that little bit more independent and have time outside, away from parents and away from the house, to grow up a little bit. Okay, Kylie, a couple of practical steps, things that we can do to help our children to encounter the world safely. I'm going to go first. Starting young, I think that we want to be walking routes with our kids, pointing out landmarks, discussing what to do if something goes wrong, giving our kids these, I'm going to call it a dry run or a supervised run, giving them experience being out there and doing it.
Telling them they're going to be the leader and they're the ones who are actually going to navigate the trip, even though you're with them. They get to make the decisions. Are we turning left or right at this intersection? Do we have to cross the road here?
Yep.
Helping them to kind of feel like they're in charge of the family outing.
You tell me when it's safe to cross the road and then we'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you pull them back when they say, okay, let's go. And I've done that more than once. The second thing, you touched on it already, and it's really important to highlight. This has come up a couple of times in the podcast. When you have built community, when people know who you are in the neighborhood and you know them, it makes it much better so that if your children are ever uncomfortable, they know that they can knock on this door here or that door there. This is one of the reasons that I'm much more for public schooling than private schooling, because you get to know the neighborhood, you get to know the families a lot more, and the kids know that they can bang on this door or that door if they're feeling nervous or worried. We've covered that off a couple of times. Independence is just easier when there's multiple families on board. And of course, when there's multiple families on board, your child is probably going to be hanging out with their kids at the park anyway. Like they'll pick one another up along the route, so they're not going to be traveling solo everywhere.
And you also don't feel like you're doing it on your own. The more connection you've got with other families, the chances are that their children will be doing the same things alongside your child. So your child isn't actually doing anything solo. They're actually doing it with a handful of trusted friends.
Third thing that I would add, and again, we've kind of touched on this, but I want to be extremely explicit about it. We've got to teach our kids. I don't think there's benefit to teaching stranger danger. I don't think that's helpful, because usually you are going to be expecting your child to approach a stranger if they're worried.
Well, not only that, I think it creates an unnecessary anxiety in our children that everyone's unsafe.
Which is just... You
can't trust anyone.
It's such an unhealthy way to approach the world. So rather than teaching stranger danger, I'd rather just teach them this thing that we could call situational awareness. So help them to identify anybody who might be behaving in a tricky or an undesirable manner and to avoid them, and help them to identify safe adults, because if they ever need help, they can go to those safe adults. And we've created a hierarchy in our home. You look for parents with kids, usually mums. I mean, unfortunately, I hate to say it. If any child ever came to me, I know they'd be safe. And most men are. But statistically, your child is much more likely to be harmed by a bloke than a woman. So we've always said, find a lady with children, or go to a shop owner or find somebody in uniform. Worst case scenario, you walk up to any stranger, because the likelihood is that almost any stranger is going to be safe compared to the stranger that's making you feel, or the tricky person who's making you feel unsafe. So having that situational awareness, knowing what cars are around and that kind of thing will just help your children to be safe.
And the last thing is just recognizing what would be considered an age-appropriate expectation. If you've got a 12-year-old, they're quite capable of walking to the park as long as you've ticked all those boxes and you feel like everything's okay.
Yeah, probably not for a 7-year-old though.
No,
unless you're in Japan and you're sending them down to the shops 2 kilometres away for some milk, because apparently that's what they do there. Have you seen that TV show? It's amazing. Anyway, I digress. In Australia, the expectation would be that your children will be old enough to be able to assess the risks and take appropriate action.
So as a 12-year-old heading into year 7, I would suggest that maybe he's a little bit behind in independence compared to the average child.
Yeah, I don't know about in 2025, but certainly throughout history. Absolutely throughout history. In 2025, I'm seeing more and more parents who are doing this. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that it's appropriate. I don't think that's what our kids need. But actually, he probably is still a little bit behind the average even in 2025. Yeah, depending on the neighbourhood.
And I don't think this is about him pushing too hard. I think it's actually about giving him the opportunity to catch up.
Okay. Well, we really hope, Teresa, that this has been a helpful conversation for you. Thanks so much for getting in touch. If you have a tricky question for us, please send us a voice note, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au. Or if you don't want to send us a voice note, you can just go to happyfamilies.com.au and click on the record button, start talking. It's literally that simple. Another tricky question next week. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides additional research, admin and other support. And for more information and resources about making your family happier, visit happyfamilies.com.au.